What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Craftavore Tastes, and today is actually July 4th. So I'm hoping to actually get this review uploaded today. So if you happen to be watching it a little bit later on today, happy 4th of July to you from me. All right, so jumping into some more New Jersey goodness. As I mentioned in the previous episode where I did the review on Carton Brewing's Head High, the other brewery that I mentioned as pretty much as well known as probably, the top two breweries in the state, one obviously being Kane. The second one is Carton Brewing out of Atlantic Highlands, New Jersey. So today's beer is actually a collaboration between Carton Brewing and another New Jersey brewery called Cape May Brewing Company, obviously in Cape May, New Jersey. And the beer that we're going to be reviewing today is actually Tip to Top, which is this is a mouthful, thanks Augie, a lacked oat, India-inspired, late-hopped Imperial Pale Ale with pineapple chutney. When I heard that this beer was being released, I honestly thought that Augie was like trolling people. But no, it's a legit thing. And as you can see actually on the can, it's a little bit different than the regular carton cans. There is a logo there for And Tellier. If I pronounced that correctly. I probably didn't, but that's basically the brand name that Carton Brewing uses when they do collaborations. All right, so so as I mentioned, the collaboration is with Cape May Brewing Company. So both Carton and Cape May actually opened in the same year in 2011. And I've had the pleasure of going and visiting Carton many, many times, and I've actually visited Cape May Brewing Company as well. And so for Cape May, I just have really heard how they've really kind of ramped up their beers over the course of the last number of years, doing some really good things. So excited about this one. And yeah, the name is kind of funny and interesting to say the least. And it's a very Carton-esque recipe. And what I mean by that is one of the things that I love about Carton Brewing is that the brewery is very culinary focused in its recipes. Augie Carton, owner of the brewery, namesake of the brewery, for many years actually wrote, if I'm not mistaken, an anonymous restaurant review blog in New York City. And so, Augie's always kind of been very kind of culinary focused, and he's taken that passion and translated over to when they opened up his brewery. So there's a lot of Carton beers out there that I happen to love, but I am a self-processed foodie myself. But I could see how some kind of things may be a little bit polarizing to some folks. But always love for me to dig into a Carton, culinary-inspired beer, and I think that's exactly what Tip to Top is. All right? So again, a lacked oat, India-inspired, late-hopped Imperial Pale Ale with pineapple chutney. Coming in at, there it is, 8% ABV. Hops are Citra, Belma, and Zythos. And I believe this has been added, again, mentions pineapple chutney on the name here, but I believe basil and cilantro. Wow. So this is going to be super, super interesting. Again, so the grist is actually pale malt, malted oats, carapils, flaked oats, acidulated malt, and lactose. All right, cool. All that information coming actually on the back of that can, like right there. Normally I don't dive back into it, but I figured this is a really, really interesting beer. I figured I'd kind of go through everything. All right, so obviously, the drill. Pop top, appearance, aroma, taste, rating. Okay? Go ahead. Get this guy straight into a glass. A little bit nicer, aggressive pour there. I'm all set and ready. Perfect. All right, let's take a look at that beer. So, beer comes in very kind of straw, kind of yellow color. It's probably getting a little bit more illuminated from the actual light here, but beer actually looks super, super beautiful. Not a tremendous amount of head going on there. I'm assuming just from the large percentage of oats, which tends to kind of knock down head retention a little bit, but yeah, not a tremendous amount of head that is sticking around. It's dissipating actually pretty quickly. But beers look super good, man. Like, it's got a nice kind of little bit of haze going on there. It looks extremely bright, looks very crushable. Looks great, man. Let's go ahead and dive our nose into it and get an aroma. Oh my lord. Wow. Oh my God. Wow. That is incredibly, incredibly interesting. So, straight up out of the nose, immediately get that basil note for sure. I don't necessarily know if I get cilantro yet, right? Like cilantro obviously has a very kind of specific, aroma to it that I'm not really getting, but I am absolutely getting basil, herbal greenness, not like dried herbs, like more like fresh kind of like green kind of herbs. There's definitely an underlying, at least for me, ginger kind of note going on, right? So like this is inspired by like India, right? Like actually the country of India. And so there's a lot of different flavors in here that are obviously very, very commonly used in Indian foods. And like I definitely get kind of like a gingery kind of note, a little bit of sweetness from that lactose. God, that smells really interesting. And then on the end, it's candied pineapple, which obviously has to be that pineapple chutney. Like it's definitely there. And maybe that sweetness actually isn't the lactose, but rather the pineapple chutney that I'm getting. Wow, that is really super interesting. I don't know if I've ever smelled a beer like that before, but it smells absolutely delicious. Again, this is kind of bringing out the foodie in me, so I can kind of understand if this may not be everybody's bag, but it definitely is mine. So let's go again and taste and get a taste. Cheers. Wow. Oh my lord. Wow. So huge blast of that candied pineapple up front. The basil note is absolutely without a shadow of a doubt there. Not only the first time that you taste it, but it's actually lingering on kind of like the roof of my mouth a little bit where that basil, again, I'm trying to kind of find that cilantro note, and maybe just in the brewing process, maybe cilantro comes out a different way. I don't know how it was added. I don't necessarily know if I'm picking up on it. As I mentioned, kind of with the aroma, I'm looking for it. I don't know if it's there or if it's kind of being morphed into that basil and that herbliness is kind of melding together, and that's what I'm getting. But I don't know. But this is wild. Like this is really, really different. Going back in for another taste. Mouthfeel is super kind of soft. It's 8% alcohol. Um, man, how do I describe it? It doesn't. It does hide the alcohol well. It does, but there's a portion when you're drinking it where that perceived kind of alcohol note kind of does hit a little bit. And if I were to be hard pressed drinking it for the first time and not knowing the ABV, I would think that the ABV is higher. Which is tough because I just kind of said that the alcohol there is hidden quite well and is not so present. I'm not really sure how to explain that, other than to say that it is extremely crisp. It feels crushable. It feels different. It feels good for like hot food or warm weather, which would make sense given the obviously India inspiration behind this. The taste, obviously, I'm thinking from the oats and the lactose is kind of nice and creamy, while at the same time it is kind of light and crushable too, which is kind of wild. But going back in for one more and then we're going to rate it because going a little long here on time, but this is an interesting one. Wow. So incredibly herbaceous. And even in that last kind of sip, I almost got a little bit of mint. I don't know. I'm wondering if it's that basil and kind of cilantro, melding together to, as I mentioned before, like, I don't know, kind of creating kind of herbal notes that just kind of meld all into one. It's a little hard to pick up, but I do actually get a little bit of mint, which is interesting. All right. Rating for Carton and Cape May Brewing Company's collaboration Tip to Top. This one is really hard to rate. I love Indian food, so I love all of these different flavors. They are completely and totally my bag. So this is going to be one of those beers where if that's something that you're super into, you're going to love it. If you don't like these types of flavors and you're not kind of really into Indian food or haven't really been exposed to those flavors much, I could absolutely see how a person may actually hate this because it is super polarizing. So the rating that I'm going to give it, obviously all of my ratings are specifically for me, but it comes with the caveat that I really, really dig Indian food. I like all these particular flavors, so having it in a beer is something that works specifically for me. All right? So, rating. With that said, I'm going to give this one a 4.25 caps. Straight up, I've never had a beer like it. This is really interesting. The closest I've maybe come to from an India perspective or Indian flavor perspective would be Ballast Point's Indra Kunindra, which I happen to love as well. But it's been a number of years since I drank that. So I love these kind of culinary takes that Carton does. I think their signature. I think obviously that's their signature, and it's something that kind of speaks to me a bit and that foodie in me. So yeah, that's all I got to say about it, man. It's interesting. It's super kind of cool if you can kind of get your hands on it. Actually, I had to go down to the brewery to pick it up, but if you can get your hands on it and you dig kind of like Indian food and want to kind of press your palate a little bit, pick it up. It's really, really awesome. It's really interesting. 4.25 caps. 4 tip the top from the Craftavore Tastes. That'll do it for this episode. I'll hope you join me again for another episode when I drink, I review, I rate, and then I repeat. Cheers.